time you see the President of the United States, there are several people standing around him with a loaded firearm at their side. Any one of those people could pull out one of those firearms and blow away our commander-in-chief, our president. Why does it never happen? We're back to this. There is an understanding. Soldiers are given weapons, but those weapons are to be used only to protect, never to take lives unless commanded. And so Beowulf will now come in front of Hrothgar. Let's pay attention now to the second speech. Beowulf is now going to speak for the second time. What will he say to King Hrothgar? Here we go. Beowulf in front of Hrothgar arose. I'm on page 47. Read it with me, lines 230 and following. Beowulf arose with his men around him, ordering a few to remain with their weapons, leading the others quickly along under Herod's steep roof into Hrothgar's presence. Standing on that prince's own hearth, helmeted, the silvery metal of his mailed shirt gleaming with a smith's high art, he greeted the Danes' great lord. I'll just point out really quickly here, by the way. Did you notice, and this is a 2B observation, did you notice already how many times descriptions are being made of the things they wear, the helmets they have on, the ship that they sail in? And notice all of the descriptions are celebratory. Yeah? In other words, they talk about how good they look, right? In their uniform, how stunning they look, right? That is to say, if you've ever watched a Marine commercial, you know what those guys look like. What do they show Marine commercials? What do those guys look like? Some fat slob that's eating potato chips and drinking Mountain Dew on the sofa. No, right? How do those guys always look? They always look what? Very strong, very well-mannered, right? They usually have the uniform on. And how does that uniform fit them? Very well. Takes us all the way back to the Anglo-Saxon poem. Beowulf looks fine. He knows how to dress well. And when he comes in front of Hrothgar, he looks like a man who knows how to do business, right? A man who knows how to do business. He will speak now. Let's listen to what he has to say. These are going to be very important words for us as we get ready to ask a simple question. Why does a hero, superhero, if we wish to think of him that way, actually do what a superhero does? In other words, for your notes, what is the source of Beowulf's motivations? Why does he come to the land of the Danes to fight against this terrible monster Grendel? And we'll actually have several answers given in the poem. We're going to get our first series of possible answers here. Hail Hrothgar. This means, hail means to say, I show you respect. Hail Hrothgar. Notice right away he begins. Hygelac is my cousin and my king. Right? So in other words, the first place he says is, I come from a king. Right? The days of my youth have been filled with glory. Let's write the G word down. The very first thing he says is, I have had lots of glory in my life. What is glory? Well, we usually think of it as fame, don't we? You do things that people talk about after the fact. Beowulf is going to, maybe some readers will say, start to brag a little bit. Let's take a look. Now Grendel's name has echoed in our land. Sailors have brought us stories of Heorot, the best of all mead halls, deserted and useless when the moon hangs in skies the sun had lit. Light and life fleeing together, my people have said, the wisest, most knowing, and best of them, that my duty was to go to the Danes' great king. Notice he will say it with the D word. Duty. I would write that word down. What does that word mean? He says, it is my duty. But did you read even closer? Again, I'm teaching you how to read close. Did you notice that he said, my people said, it's my duty? In other words, right away, let's point out, Beowulf doesn't say, I'm here for myself. I'm here because my people told me I should come over here and I should kill this monster, and thereby it is my duty. In other words, I have the ability and the power to kill this monster, therefore I should kill this monster. Now this is going to be a fundamental part of what we will call the Anglo-Saxon Code. What is the Anglo-Saxon Code? It says the following. I would write it down. It says the following. If you have the ability to help, you have a duty to help. I would write that down. It's a fundamental concept of the Anglo-Saxon code. We'll play this one out in further discussions later, but let's go ahead and note it here. If you have the ability to help, you have a duty or an obligation to help. If you can help, for example, a person, you have an obligation to help that person. If you have talent, whoa, let's follow this argument. If you have talent, you have a duty to use that talent. Very interesting idea. For example, I'm a really good athlete at Worland High School, but I don't want to go out for the team. The team comes to me and says, if you come out and help us, we win the championship. Question, does that person have a duty to go out for the team? What if he says, hey, I could care less. I don't care if I have the talent. I got no interest in it. What's the Anglo-Saxon code say? No. It isn't about what you want. It's about what the group needs. You have a duty and therefore an obligation. Whoa! How about this one? You have the ability intellectually to make top grades and you fail a class. The counselor or the teacher or a parent comes to you and says, you have the ability to make top grades. You have a duty to your school, to your community, to your family, and to your nation to get good grades because you have the ability to do it. Whoa. Dude, it's my ability. I'll do it what I want. You missed it. Not in the Anglo-Saxon code. In the Anglo-Saxon code, it isn't about what you want. It's about the group's needs. If you can do something to help the group, you have an obligation to do that. What an interesting concept. Let's take it one step further. Question. If you have been born in a country, raised in a country, provided in a country, your education, your livelihood, your living, it has taken care of you. And then that country turns around and asks you at some point in your life to sacrifice your life to defend that country. Do you have a duty to that country? Of course, the easy answer is, I didn't ask to be born in this country. I didn't ask to be given all that stuff. It wasn't me. I wasn't asked. The Anglo-Saxon code says, no. You totally missed it. The fact that you have the ability to help your country means you have a duty to help your country. Done. End of discussion. That's the argument Babel's making right here. It is a foundational understanding of the Anglo-Saxon code, which will become part of the English mindset, which will become part of the American mindset. Which now begs a very interesting question. Have times changed? Have times changed? Do we think differently now about the idea of duty? Duty to your family, duty to your town, duty to your school, duty to your state, duty to your country. Do we think differently about that stuff now? Have things changed? Beowulf will say, I'm here to do my duty. It's a funny word. By the way, you can go ahead and jot down at level 3A that just briefly, and we'll come back to this in later conversations, you can Google and study this on your own. The great German philosopher Immanuel Kant, K-A-N-T, will argue that we have a moral duty to behave in certain ways. Even though we can get away with it, Kant will argue we have a moral duty in his famous categorical imperative. We have a moral duty to act in such a way that we will take care of other people. He makes the argument, always behave in such a way that other people could do the same thing. That is to say, the golden rule, do to others what you would have others do to you. Interesting idea. That Kantian idea of duty is, of course, today debated. Do you think we still have a duty? Do you have a duty to your community? Do you have a duty to your nation? And of course, the obvious question is, would you exist without your family? Would you exist without your community? Would you exist without your nation? And if the answer to any of those is, yeah, no, I don't exist without those things, well, then the obvious Anglo-Saxon question is, well, then don't you have a duty to take care of the very people who gave you your life, provided you your life? When the people who raised you get so old, they cannot take care of themselves, do you have a duty to take care of them? The Anglo-Saxon code says, you bet you do. You bet. Notice already, Beowulf's mentioned several times, I work for the king. That is to say, I have a duty to my king. Back in Geatland, where I come from. Back to page 47. My people have said, the wisest, most knowing. These are the final lines on page 47. Most knowing, and best of them, that my duty was to go to the Danes' great king. They, the people back home, they have seen my strength for themselves. Top of page 48. And here we've got a little bit of chest thumping. Do you know this phrase, chest thumping, in athletic or places? Sometimes if you do something really well, you'll pound on your chest to show just how great you are and all of that. Some, of course, readers of this will say, oh man, we have not gotten away from this. Guys love to talk about themselves, and here we go, a guy bragging about what he's done. Notice he says, my people back home, top of page 48. They've watched me rise from the darkness of war, dripping with my enemy's blood. I drove 5 great giants into chains, chased all of that race from the earth. I swam in the blackness of night, hunting monsters out of the ocean and killing them one by one. Death was my errand and the fate they had earned. In other words, he says, dude, I've jacked a lot of bad monsters. In other words, I ain't worried about this Grendel monster. I'm fine. Now Grendel and I are called together, and I've come. Grant me then, Lord and protector of this noble place, a single request. Boy, I hope you're reading closely, because did you see what he just said? I am called to meet Grendel. Now in sport language, we see this all the time. The 2 great giants, the 2 best opponents, inevitably are going to find themselves in competition against each other. And he says, I only have one request. By the way, notice that Beowulf is showing respect to the king. He could easily just show up and say, you got a problem, I'm going to fix it for you. He doesn't do that. Instead, he says, can I ask you a question? Can I make a request? He's showing respect even though he doesn't have to. Obviously, the message here is, young people show respect to old people, even though they don't have to. If you were raised in a house where you were told, when an old person walks in, stand up, take your hat off when you're inside. This all comes from this Anglo-Saxon time. For those of you that have wondered sometimes, where those kind of manners come from, all the way back to the time of the Beowulf epic. Let's finish this passage. He says, I have a single request. I've come so far, O shelter of warriors and your people's loved friend, that this one favor you should not refuse me, that I, alone, and with the help of my men, may purge all evil from this hall. I have heard, too, that that the monster's scorn of men is so great that he needs no weapons and fears none, nor will I. Let's put it in your notes really quickly. Beowulf says, I want to go one-on-one with Grendel, but I ain't gonna put on no armor, and I'm not going to use no weapons. He doesn't have weapons, I won't use weapons. Whoa. Beowulf, very confident in his skill set of fighting. Would you agree with me? Let's finish. My lord Hygelac might think less of me if I let my sword go where my feet were afraid to, if I hid behind some broad linden shield. My hands alone shall fight for me, struggle for life against the monster. God must decide who will be given to death's cold grip. Grendel's plan, I think, will be what it has been before, to invade this hall and gorge his belly with our bodies, if he can. And I think, if my time will have come, there'll be nothing to mourn over, no corpse to prepare for its grave. Grendel will carry our bloody flesh to the moors, crunch on our bones, and smear torn scraps of our skin on the walls of his den. No, I expect no Danes will fret about sewing our shrouds if he wins. And if death does take me, send the hammered mail of my armor to Hygelac, return the inheritance I have from Hethril and he from Wayland. Fate will unwind as it must. Let's finish here. Fate. He says it this way. 2 things. 1, I am ready to fight. I am ready to die. Whoa! let me get this straight, dude. You're living in another country, having a great life, and all of a sudden you get in a boat and come over here to fight against the worst imaginable monster, and you say, I'm probably going to die. Why? What would motivate him to want to do this fight in the first place? He's given answers. I got a duty. I want some glory. But number 2, he says, if I die, will you send my armor back home? That is to say, I want to be remembered back home as a hero who died. Which asks a very interesting final question. Do people who have died defending their country deserve to be remembered? Do they deserve respect? When you stand, for example, before a ball game and you look at a flag, and there's an anthem sung, or there's the Pledge of Allegiance recited, do you have a duty to respect the fallen who have defended your country and given you your freedom? The Anglo-Saxon Code would say what about that question? You bet you do. You bet you do. You have a duty to respect the fallen, to respect those who died in defense. Notice the final lines on page 48. That night, Beowulf and his men stay inside Heorot. While his men sleep, Beowulf lies awake, eager to meet with Grendel. Notice our poet, genius storytelling, is going to set this up to say, I wonder what happens when Beowulf and Grendel go hand to hand. Notice, no weapons. He says, I don't want to fight him with a sword. I'll fight him with my bare hands. Very interesting. Come back. We'll see what happens to Beowulf and Grendel. Thank you.